Forge FC is ready for their upcoming match.
Simply stunning stuff. And finally, their goal. My word, what a rocket.
Now, let's get you up to date with Anthony Urciuoli and Match Day Preview on the Forge Audio Network.
Hey, Forge fans, it's the Forge Audio Network, your official home of the reigning, defending, undisputed Canadian Premier League champions, Forge FC. I'm Anthony Urciuoli, your host. This weekend is a monumental day. So much going on. Where to even start? Well, first of all, obviously there's a game to be played. A huge one. With so many different storylines. You have head coach Bobby Smirniotis managing his 150th match at the helm of Forge. You have Forge FC in contention for, obviously they're in a playoff spot, but in contention for first place in the CPL. And they're playing against the team they're chasing, Calvary FC, who just, by the way, happens to be their biggest rival. By the way, it's the Spark Summit, and we're going to get into all of it. It's a huge weekend. It's September, Labor Day. We're past that point. We're getting into the full swing of the sports season in general, with all the major sports ramping up, and playoff time is essentially here already in the Canadian Premier League. Forge FC coming off a 3-0 victory in Vancouver against Vancouver FC, a match in which Women's Pacius scored a hat trick, his second career hat trick. Oh, so close to that fourth goal on a couple of occasions. That would have been a CPL record. No one has scored 4 in a match just yet. You had Tristan Henry, who not only leads the league in clean sheets this season, but is in the all-time leader in clean sheets in the CPL. He had another last match. It was the perfect springboard match for Forge FC going into this one, and boy, do they have a tall task ahead of them. Calvary, look, here's the reality. As much as you, as a Forge fan, do not like Calvary, we have to call it like it is. Calvary FC today is the best team in the league, and that's just based on the most recent body of work and just the body of work over the course of this 2023 season. But the beauty of this league, week in, week out, we see it all the time. Not only can anyone beat anyone, but Calvary, let's expand it to the previous seasons. Calvary is the best regular season team this league has ever seen. However, they have yet to win a championship, and Forge has 4 of them. The perennial, Forge FC is the monkey on the back of Calvary FC. We're now 4, almost 5 seasons into this league, and that is that hurdle. Forge is the hurdle for Calvary, so they'll be fired up and plenty on the line for Forge FC, because they're still kind of trying to find their way down the stretch here. But we'll get into that as well. Before that, though, I mentioned it off the top, Spark Summit, an incredible event. The second annual rendition of this event is coming up on Saturday, connecting and inspiring professional women in the sports and entertainment industry. Last year's event was just an incredible success. I had an incredible time. I will be there again just to sit, observe, listen. So much to learn. You come away from it, there's something very fulfilling about this event. And, if you have the opportunity to be involved, I highly recommend you do so. It happens Saturday, September 9th. That's this weekend from 4 to 7 p.m. at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. And following the panel discussions, you got a networking event. You're on the club level at Tim Hortons Field, and you get to take in the Calvary Forge match as part of the day. So there's just, there's so many different elements to be excited for this weekend. The panel at the Spark Summit will include Megan Cheka, co-founder and CEO of Stathletes, TSN anchor Lindsay Hamilton, media and events mogul Patrice Whiffen, Karen Volden, VP of production for Uninterrupted Canada, a division of LeBron James' sports media company, Tiffany Lai, the senior manager of brand and creative design of the Canadian Football League, Mary Lobson, founder and CEO of Reese Technologies, Inc., her company's trauma-informed online platform provides an outlet for the reporting of bullying, abuse, harassment, and discrimination, advocating for change across the sectors and industries. And it'll be hosted by CBC and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment host Jacqueline Dory, who got her start with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So everything's connected here. Secure your spot by visiting forgefc.ca/Spark Summit. And if you just want to take in the match, you can do that as well. forgefc.ca/tickets. Okay, here's what's ahead, because we got to look at the table, because the table matters a lot right now. It is unbelievably tight. Calvary in first place with 39 points. Pacific and Forge tied for second place with 35 points. The final two playoff teams, Atletico Ottawa, York, 32 points. Halifax, just outside the playoff picture, also with 32 points. This is going to come down to not just the final week of the season, but tiebreakers. You know tiebreakers are going to come into effect. And so your head-to-head matchups matter. Your goal differential is going to matter. Every little bit, every little piece matters this time of year. And we're going to have to look at it from multiple angles. So Forge 4 points back of Calvary heading into this one, an opportunity to just get 1 point behind Calvary, but not just that. And if you watched or listened to the live match in review after Forge's match against Calvary, we talked a lot about Pacific. They're in second place, virtually tied with Forge, but they have a match in hand. That's why that's their tiebreaker. That's the difference. If Forge can take care of business this weekend and potentially jump over Pacific, depending on what Pacific does. Here's the reality. This is what Pacific is looking at, because Forge has a tough schedule, we know, but not as tough as Pacific's. They are home to Halifax. Halifax, always a tough one. Plus, they need points. They need wins. In fact, they are in sixth. They're just outside of the playoff picture, despite being tied with both Atletico and York. But Halifax is a match in hand on York as well. So Halifax fired up for this next one, and they'll be taking on Pacific. So Pacific has Halifax fighting for a final playoff spot. Then they're at Ottawa. Tough. At York. Tough. At Forge. Tough. And then home to Vancouver. That's kind of their easy one. And then they visit Cavalry to end the season. Pacific has the toughest road ahead, and a huge opportunity if you're Forge FC. If you can take care of Cavalry, you're sitting in a pretty good spot. And again, these clubs, Forge is going to play Pacific as well, so they'll have an opportunity to control their own destiny, but they need to take care of business this weekend against Calvary. And a sticking point this year, what Forge is going to be looking back potentially and saying, we should have been able to accumulate more points at home. Right now, they have the 5th best home record in the league. 11 matches played at home, 3 wins, 6 draws, 2 losses, but those draws really piled up. Far and away the most amount of draws at home this year for Forge FC. So if you're Calvary, though, as a road club, 4th best road club, 11 matches played, 4 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses. Head-to-head, this is a storied rivalry. Forge has 10 wins in the head-to-head matchup. Calvary has 7, and they played to 6 draws. This year, though, first 2 matches ended in draws, 2-2 in Hamilton, 1-1 in Calgary. Calvary, though, a dominant performance at home back on August 4th. That was a 3-0 win over Forge. This is the season finale for both clubs. And some key insights. Forge FC ranked 4th in goals scored per match at 1.4. They've kept the most clean sheets in the competition. Thank you, Tristan Henry and Chris Kalongo. He has 1 as well. Taron Campbell, the competition's top goal scorer with 10. He's tied with Ollie Bassett. Calvary, I mentioned they were tough. ranked number 1 in goals scored per match at 1.6. They've been awarded the most penalties this season with 5, and it's not too difficult to figure out how they're doing that. They are a very in-your-face, aggressive front foot kind of club, which is why they're just, they could be a nightmare to play against, and they were in that previous match between these two sides. And Ali Musi ranked first in the league in big chances created. A lot of difference makers in this roster, but if we look at these SOFA score ratings for this season, Kyle Becker, number 1 in the league. Mandrikar James, also in the top 10 this season. And for Calvary, Ali Musi is the 8th highest rated player this season. Goals, we talked about that. Campbell, Bassett at 10. Meyer Bevin, though, for Calvary, 1 goal back of both Campbell and Bassett. Woobens Pacius, that hat trick. Again, a loaded club, especially up front, minutes at a premium. Not always easy to find the field on this club, and that's just the nature of playing on a club like this. But Pacius has 7 goals. He is 4th in the league in goals scored. He's just 3 off the lead. That is impressive because he has not played as many minutes as those guys at the top. Scoring frequency, 2nd in the league, Woobens Pacius. He averages a goal every 148 minutes. That is number 2. Number 3, Taron Campbell, 152 minutes. He averages a goal. So 2 Forge players in the top 3. Ball possession will be an interesting. Now, we learned last match, somehow Vancouver won the possession battle. A club that averages around 32% possession per game this season. Forge leads the league in possession, yet Vancouver won the possession battle despite losing 3-0. And we explained it in the match in review. Here's the reality. Forge was just taking what was given to them. Vancouver, not a ton of resistance. They gave up a lot of space, so Forge just didn't have to play that slow build possession game. They were just able to play on the front foot and put their head down and go. So that impacted the ball possession stats. But this year, Forge first in the league at 55.7% per match. Calvary second. They're just 1 percentage point behind. So, yeah, we're in for a good one. Do you know who else is a good one? Terrible segue. Terrible segue, but I'm sticking with it because it is what it is. Mitchell Tierney, reporter with CanPL.ca, giving us a little deeper dive into this matchup and the two clubs respectively. Mitchell Tierney joins the match day preview now. All right, Mitchell, welcome back. Could we be witnessing a potential CPL final this weekend in Hamilton?
Potentially. We've certainly seen it before, so it's a past CPL final, but 2 clubs who obviously, have been ambitious since the very beginning, and it's no coincidence that 5 years later they find themselves in a similar position in terms of being at the top of the table. So, yeah, it's very possible, and, I think in some ways this could be a bit of a title decider in terms of the regular season title. If we see maybe either one of, certainly if Forge lose, they're 7 points behind with only a few matches remaining. That kind of, you would say, puts them out of the race behind Cavalry. And, if Cavalry win, they're going to be further forward. So, it's one of those where there's a lot on the line here, both regular season and potentially playoffs in terms of positioning.
Take us maybe a little deeper into Cavalry's tactics, and don't worry, I don't mind interviewing you and your pup, just so you know. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Don't even.
She's got thoughts.
It's let her go. It's fine. Cavalry's tactics this year. I mean, a lot of similarities to what we see with Forge, but Calvary appears to have found just an extra gear this season, especially as of late.
Yeah, they certainly have. You look at the William Akio signing as certainly kind of maybe that move that took them attacking wise over the top in terms of options and what he's done. 5 goals in 7 games is a ridiculous output for a player coming into the league and having that consistent difference maker. That's we saw it in their last match against Ottawa. That's the difference between, a single point on the road or 3 points that, is part of the reason they're starting to create that margin with the rest of the league. So that's been a big add, but there's a lot to like in terms of their attack in general. I mean, Meyer Bevan, he hasn't been scoring as much recently, but, he's up there for the Golden Boot lead. Jesse Daly's been great in midfield for them and a great add. And, Ali Musi's been playing at a player of the year like caliber for them as well. So, they have so many good options in there. And Camargo, obviously a player that Forge fans will know well from his many years with Calvary, is still there and still a key player in their offense. So they've taken what they've been good at in the past and kind of added a couple of really, really good pieces in there, and they've been healthy this year. That's a huge thing for them. They've never really been healthy over the course of a CPL season, so this is probably the healthiest they've ever been. And in terms of the rhythm and being able to field a consistent lineup, that's been huge.
And I mean, Calvary obviously has a lot of individual talent, but when you watch the club, there doesn't appear to be just one or two guys kind of stirring the drink. It does look like they've bought into this total team approach.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's what you need over the course of a CPL season, where you play teams multiple times and that sort of thing. Is, if Ali Musi's going to be the key guy this day, okay, teams will key in on that. They'll shut down Ali Musi, and then, you've got Akio or Meyer Bevan or different ways to do this. This has always been a team that has tried to score as many ways as possible. And, Forge will have learned that the last time they played in terms of their set piece ability as well, and that incredible goal that they scored to open the scoring in that one. So, yeah, I think that this is a deep team. It's a team with plenty of quality and a team that can win in a lot of different ways. And again, that's why they're top of the table right now.
And Forge is that proverbial monkey on Calvary's back. I mean, you have the best regular season club in CPL history in Calvary. But come playoff time, it has been Forge hoisting the North Star Shield 4 times. Well, Calvary's come up empty. Is there just a slight psychological edge in this head-to-head matchup?
Well, I think we'll find out. I mean, this is, you mentioned kind of a CPL final preview and all the different ways we can call this a final, but this almost seems like a cup final for Calvary, especially because this is the team that, has always that moment where it looks like they're about to have that breakthrough as a club. Forge is always standing in their way. So this is another opportunity where, again, if they win this match, they're starting to sail away to that regular season title, but again, there must be something in the back of their minds going, okay, if Forge somehow beat us, and Forge hasn't been incredible this year. They've had their struggles certainly, but if they beat us and they go within like 1 point behind us, I know we have the game in hand and everything, but you start to hear those rather gigantic footsteps from Forge and potentially other clubs as well. So yeah, I think that mentally that has to play into this game, and it'll be interesting to see if this, and they've been starting sort of calling themselves the new Cavalry, maybe stealing from John Herdman's New Canada a little bit. And we've seen that a couple of indications to show that this is the new Cavalry, but this is, probably in terms of the regular season, their biggest opportunity to really prove that.
Yeah, and you never want to say a club has too much talent, because that sounds like a negative, when, I mean, it is a luxury. But I look at the Forge lineup this year. Do they use Ashton Yodianson as a defender? Do they use him as a 6 like they did in the last match, when you have Hojab Rapport, who's not only a great defensive midfielder, but he's also scored some big goals in some really big moments. Up front, Buddy Banga and Borges and Chouanier and Pacias and Campbell and Jordan Hamilton, we haven't even talked much about. Kwesi Poku has even proven that he can play as a wing back. With only so many minutes to go around, and we're weeks away from the playoffs now, and I'm not sure Bobby Smirniotis has a clear picture of who his top 11 are right now.
I mean, yes, but also I feel like we could rewind to this exact time last season and we might be having this exact same conversation, especially in attack. We were going in and we were saying, oh, who will Forge find in terms of, that it's front three, and it seems like a continuous conversation around them again, because they have so many options over the course of the season, and Bobby really does like to rotate and have different looks. And in past years, maybe it's worked a little bit better in terms of some of those players clicking. And, I think there's multiple players on this Forge side who, maybe have underachieved in terms of what we would have thought this year. But, in these big matches, it's always something where these players know what to do. They know how to handle the moments. And these really are games of moments where you want to go back to the playoff game where Forge played Calvary last time and eliminated them. Their captain gets a red card, and most teams would crumble in that moment. And Forge, they stay and they wait for their moment, which is to charge David Norman Jr. and get him to get red carded. You're even, okay, let's go on from here. So
Yeah.
I think this is a team that's, uniquely ready for this time of year. And yes, Bobby's going to have to make some decisions down the stretch, but I don't know. It feels like we're always having this conversation. Right. They always seem to figure it out. So we'll see this time around.
Yeah. Not a bad problem to have. I have not been able to get over how tight the table has been this season from start to finish. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in any sport ever. I mean, the level of parity, it's remarkable. Great for the fans. It has to be fun for the players and coaches because every match feels like a playoff match. And they added that additional playoff spot this season. And I'm not sure it's even enough. There's a very good 6th place team that's going to miss the playoffs. And it almost, we added a team. And now I'm thinking, do we need to add another one? Because there are so many good teams this year.
Yeah. And I think it's part and parcel of the playoff structure being the way it is. And, in past years, it was really the 4 and 4, right? Getting above that top 4. And we heard Bobby, we heard Tommy Wheeldon Jr. say it a bunch of times. So many coaches would just be like, okay, let's just get in that top 4. The regular season title wasn't a thing maybe towards the end of last season where it started to matter. And this year, teams really, that's been Forge's big goal this season, is getting that CONCACAF spot. So every game's mattered a lot more. And, in terms of in the past, obviously the table is tight right now, but there would have been some clubs who maybe would have been out of it and would have been, starting to drift away a little bit. But, even Vancouver and Valor, they aren't mathematically eliminated right now, as crazy as that seems. Obviously I think we can say, it's fairly likely neither of them is in that 6, but I think that's kind of what the 5 teams and also having every position be important does. So yeah, we've seen it uniquely competitive. I don't think any of us expected it to be this close, but it's been great. And it makes this last few weeks just so incredibly intriguing.
Yeah. And seeing even just Forge and Pacific level on points for that 2nd spot, with Pacific having the match in hand, and just looking at the schedule, and Pacific has a really, really tough finish to the season. Finishing first is great. There's obviously there's a lot at stake there, but getting in that top 2 and with this new page playoff format, it gives you that kind of extra route to a final. So even finishing 2nd is just a huge difference in finishing 3rd.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like you said, it gives you the potential to host a final, which obviously for any of these clubs is a massive draw financially, and in terms of what we've seen from a lot of these clubs in terms of their home record this season. So yeah, that's going to be incredibly important. And, again, every position going down from there has its benefits in terms of hosting games, in terms of where you get, but yeah, having that second opportunity, if you do lose out in that first game or you're hosting the final, yeah, that's going to make, 2nd and 3rd mean more than really it ever has before.
All right. I'm going to stop stealing time from your pup because you're obviously very important you're important to us, but you might be even more important to them. So we'll let you go. It's going to be a great weekend. Listen, enjoy. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be every weekend now. It seems like, we're hoping for a little bit of separation in the table, or maybe we're not hoping, but we think we'll see a little bit of separation in the table, and it just ends up getting closer somehow. So
yeah.
We'll find out how that happens this weekend.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Mitchell. 3 keys to the match for Forge FC as they head into this pivotal contest with Calvary. Key number 1, start the spark. staying on brand here, keeping up with the theme of the second annual Spark Summit at Tim Hortons Field before and during Saturday's match. Best way to start a Spark is by scoring first. Always important, but even more so this weekend. Forge has beaten Calvary 10 times since 2019. In 9 of those wins, Forge scored the opening goal. Calvary has scored first in 77% of their matches this season. That is an astronomical number. When you look at they scored for 77% of the time they've scored first this season. The next best team is at 55%. That's huge. Far and away the top team in that regard. In those 17 matches in which Calvary has scored first, they've lost just once. If you're Forge, yes, you have the league's best point percentage after conceding first, but their odds of collecting all 3 decrease substantially if they give up the first goal. Score the opener, start the Spark. Key number 2 for Forge FC, top gear. I mentioned it. This Calvary side can be a nightmare to play against because they just don't let their foot off the gas. It is an intense, full 90-minute plus effort for Calvary, and they're not looking to slow build and play around with the ball. They are coming at you. And this season, they've always had this identity, but they've ramped it up even more this season. The only thing, though, that's been able to stop that freight train over the years is Forge FC. And they've mostly done it with a dominant ball control approach. But that won't be enough this time around. Not with Calvary being in the form they are in. Forge needs to bring the energy and play with pace in all phases, with and without the ball, for that full 90 plus. Key number 3, decisive. Now, Calvary surprised Ottawa last week by how aggressive they were with their press when they weren't in possession, forcing a normally sure-handed Ottawa side into a lot of uncharacteristic turnovers. Now, traditionally, Calvary has been a little more cautious with their press against the Hammers, especially at Tim Hortons Field. But regardless, Forge can only worry about themselves and ensure they're not caught off guard by being, situationally aware in their defensive third, finding their outlets, using their keeper, and not forcing passes, and just not being afraid to just clear the ball into space. I know they don't like giving it away, but there are pockets in the field you can clear the ball to, and at least force Calvary to build through the back, and just listen, don't make anything easy. Don't give them anything. Be decisive, because hesitation from the back line could spell trouble against the dangerous side from Calvary. All right. You got everything you need. All that's left is for the match to be played. Remember, immediately following that match, I will be live delivering to you the match in review, and hopefully we're talking about 3 points for the home side. Enjoy the match, enjoy the day, enjoy the Spark Summit. We will talk to you very, very, very soon.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.